I got a new project. Saab 900 Turbo, 16 valve, 1985. Saab 900 Turbo. Yeah, turbo from the factory, baby. Needs a lot of work. Needs a lot of work, man. But I do have a spare. So I'm gonna have to make out of two, one good one. How am I supposed to restore this without an engine and transmission? Look at this, it's all empty. Interior doesn't look that good either. It's automatic. Wow. But good news, it's Jetronic. LH 2.2 Jetronic, baby. Electronic, also Jetronic and electronic sunroof. Pretty advanced for 1985. So I got two engines here. This one's from 1985, manual, non-turbo, and this is turbo engine from 1989, I believe. So out of these two, I gotta make a good. I got the engine all washed up. Then I'm gonna take it apart and inspect it. As you can see, beat 202. It has water-cooled Garrett turbocharger, new style motor mounts. And I have to inspect the condition of the gearbox. This is automatic transmission out of a 1985 Saab 900 Turbo. It was made by Borg-Warner, Great Britain. It's one of the worst automatic transmissions ever made for any car. It's only 3 gears, very heavy. There's a big chain right here. It just, the gas mileage on this is just kills the power. Biggest piece of crap ever. That's why everybody is swapping to 5-speed manual on a classic 900, because this is such a piece of junk. They can last from 20,000 miles to 200,000 miles, you never know. Once they break, you basically cannot rebuild them. On the bottom there's so many small little pipes that lose their seal, and it never works right. It's best just to junk it. When manual gearbox, classic Saab 900 gearbox, one of the flaws, design flaws under early models from like 87, from 79 to like 88, they had this small bearing riding on this shaft right here. I'll wear it out eventually, and then it'll start popping out of the second gear. This one is still okay. Then they improved the design of the transmission in 1989, reinforced everything on it slightly, but still not perfect. So the best manual transmissions for classic 900 to get is from 1989 to 1990. I don't like the 1991 transmissions because the synchronizers they're so delicate and it's easy to damage them, and then you get grinding noise when shifting fast. So 89 to 90 transmissions are my favorite ones, but I don't have one, so I have to build one from I have to build a 1987 cord that I got. So I got one of the engines all apart. 2-liter B202 turbo. This is the block. The pistons, the guides. Actually, I'm going to reuse these guides. They're pretty good. The original Saab guides. And chain is pretty good too. Usually chain stretches on these. Reason why I will reuse these old Saab original factory tensioners, because the new ones are plastic junk. Engine bearings are pretty good. There's a minimum wear, so I'm going to reuse them. I'm going to reuse these piston rings. One of the issues on these engines is that this oil rings, they usually bake on. Let me get it zoomed in. So this is 1985 piston. It has a deeper dish right here than 86 and newer. That's because the cylinder head. This is 1985 cylinder head CDs. These are the quench areas, so this is better cylinder head. It centers the fire in the center. Both of the runners are the same size. 86 and newer has one of the runners is more restriction in it to make it swirl. Camshaft, one is a little bit has a different profile. That's to help the swirl, to help the low-end emissions. But back in 1985, US fuel basically didn't have any of the ethanol in it. Then later, late 80s, the what's it called, asymmetrical intake port. But this 85 has a symmetrical camshaft instead of the port. The 1986 Sonora has the same lobe length but symmetrical ports. So to upgrade this head, you would use 1986 to 1993 turbo 2-liter turbo camshafts in this head, and that'll give you performance boost. That's what I'm going to do. Alright, I already have a alternator, Guder manufactured Bosch alternator. Usually only this goes bad, this regulator goes bad. Usually this doesn't go bad. One of the common problems is this, see that the seal, the front crank seal comes off. So that'll need a replacement. I also going to need a new this. This is cracked. This is the AC idler pulley right here. I got plenty of those. One of the things that I don't like on these is this. This is the oil delivery to camshafts. I think in 1990 they eliminated this on their cylinder heads. But I'm going to use this. It doesn't hurt. One of the issues on these is these bushings for the alternator. They get hard. They wear out. Alternator vibrates too much and breaks one of these negative terminal. This is ground for the alternator. So alternator vibrates and breaks this wire right here. And people change the alternator, but that wasn't the problem. This is the problem. Also, issue on these is this paper gasket. It will leak all the time. So what Saab did, they recommend using silicone directly on these. But I use ultra gray silicone. It works great for me. See, See a leak all the time around here because of the paper gasket. Cylinder walls are perfect. They show no wear whatsoever despite engine having so many miles. Look at those. Perfect, man. Look at that, like new. This is where you ID the block, what year it came from, the block serial number. This is B202L13A. I'm attempting to reseal 1985 Saab 900 rack and pinion, steering rack and pinion, because these leak all the time. The difference on this one is it has aluminum spool housing. I think in 1989 they made these, Saab made these out of steel, because there's a problem. See, inside these channels, they were made by these Teflon rings. So this rack and pinion is shot. I'm not going to be able to reseal it. Also, a seal kit that they sell for $20, $8,740. It is for this aluminum housing spool. See this seal right here? It goes in all the way inside. So if you have this made out of the steel, I think in '91 they changed this spool valve. The diameter of this is wider, so this seal kit, at least this seal out of the seal kit, will not work. It'll be too small. So if you buy one of these and you're rebuilding a 91 and newer steering rack, do not remove this seal that's inside. It rarely leaks. That's not the seal that fails. The seal that fails on these is this top one and the side ones that are inside the rack and pinion. So right now I have to find a 1989 steering rack with the steel spool housing to rebuild it. Alright, so this is I took the manual transmission completely apart to inspect all the parts, and good thing that I did that because I found second gear synchronizer shot totally. See the groove? It's already bottoming out. So, and also the gears don't look that sharp anymore either, so I'm gonna have to replace the second gear. I do have spare parts for this early model gearbox. Also, first gear always reverse gear always takes a beating, because Saab did a very stupid thing where you have to put it in reverse to remove the key, but the reverse gear is not synchronized. So you have to like put it in a second, make the transmission, make this part stop spinning, then put it in reverse and turn off the car and remove the key. If you don't do that, it's gonna grind this gear. It's gonna grind this reverse gear against the. See, it's gonna grind these two, and this is gonna take a beating also. Also, this shaft, I managed to find a good one that is not worn out. Let's do a comparison here. See how this one is already slightly worn out. It gets eaten up by this bearing that sits in here. Pull this way. See, this needle bearing rides. Sits in here and rides on that, and then once it gets eaten up completely, it'll stop popping out of the reverse and the first gear. So it's not good. But I found a way to repair this because these are no longer available. I have an idea. What I would do is cut this key off of here. This key, cut it off here and put it on this side and weld it up. It's only there to keep it in place. It's not there, there's no force that rides against it, so that way this worn out section can be over here where it's not gonna affect anything. Nothing's gonna be written on it. This will sit right here. That's the idea that I have. The newer transmission, 1989 newer, that has a groove right here cut out because there's a sleeve, the different design. So I cannot use a shaft from 1989. I have to use these. Good thing that I have a good one that is not worn out. There's so much junk. This person didn't really change oil that much, so there's a lot of oil build up. See, that's the pinion bearing. The differential. In 1989 they made it bigger. They made this bigger, but then the housing will crack. To fit a bigger bearing housing, it has to be cut out also. When I cleaned up the cylinder head, I found out that there was some pitting around the water jacket, so what I did is mix some JB Weld and fill out the pitting, and then I'm gonna sand it down. I did that. I used to do that before, and it worked out for me, so it'll work out this time. Now, out of both engines, I found this problem. This one is all rotten. This is where the water pump goes. It's all rotten. And this one used to be rotten right here, and previous owner used a highly abrasive disc to machine it so it's not flat anymore. It's when I put the water pump, I found big gaps, so I have to buy another one, so this delayed me for 1 week. This is the remain seal. I was gonna buy a new one, but this one is still good even though it's so old. The lip is flexible, and what I like about it, it's a Saab brand. Let me get it zoomed in. It says Saab, made by Getz brand. Call me cheap, but I'd rather use this seal than put some new production made in China. This is the turbo manifold. There's a notch right here that's made to divert some of the exhaust to EGR port that's going to be right here on the top. And later models don't have that, so I'm going to have to drill that out and machine it down so it's going to be nice flowing. That's one of the upgrades people do on this one. Legendary air surge Garrett turbocharger. Nice, no play in the shaft. Good for 200 horsepower. That's about what the manual transmission can take, so that'll work out for me just fine. I put some oil in there. Usually it develops a crack right here. This one just has it a little bit, and there's no cracks inside of here. Usually you'll have like a massive crack in there, then it's not good anymore. Here it is, finally received it. nice and straight. These are the pistons all cleaned up. Just look at this, how massive these Saab turbo pistons are. They're really made for it's like a diesel. Look how thick the rod bearings are. Nicely dished. There's a letter on these pistons. Let me get it zoomed in. It says A. And there's an A on the block. And it has to match. So you can't match B pistons with A block or B block with the A pistons, and so on and so forth. Cylinder head all cleaned up. I decided to use the 86 and up cylinder head. That's because I want to use these 85 pistons and drop the compression down to 8.5 to 1. That'll give me a 1 bar or 14.7 psi boost safely on 91 octane. As you can see here, look at the dish of the piston and the way the combustion chamber is on the cylinder head. What this does is these edges on the piston push against these quench pads, and that forces the air in the center of where the spark plug is. That is to avoid detonation, or to prevent or reduce chance of detonation. And what other guys are doing, they're installing a 2.1 liter head with bigger ports, but right here they lose these quench areas, and that cylinder head is not designed for turbocharging. Nice thin layer of ultra gray silicone, Permatex ultra gray silicone. Alright. Pump is sealed too, with no gasket, just the silicone. New front seal, and this is the oil pump. This is the oil pickup tube. Very important to put a new O-ring on the oil pickup tube. Alright, I installed actually I'm reusing this gasket between the engine and transmission. So I put some silicone on both sides. So I have to work fast. I don't want the silicone to dry on me. Right here, this is the oil pan. Oil sits here for the engine. So the oil pan is incorporated into the transmission. Engine block made it to the transmission. It's time to install the gasket. Apply a little bit of silicone right here, right there, right there. Head is on. Now you see the difference. A symmetrical intake port. Intake air swirl to improve combustion. timing chain is set. See the timing notch right there? Intake, exhaust, timing mark on the flywheel at 0, reference against this mark right here. Timing chain tensioner. There's a special washer right there that it's $17 new. Instead of spending $17, I just reuse the old one and apply some silicone on it. That'll work. This feeds oil to the camshafts and to the lifters. In 1989, Saab eliminated this by integrated oil passages inside the cylinder head. But still, you order a cylinder head gasket for 1985 Saab 900 and they don't include this. So you gotta be careful. The flywheel bolts, manual calls for putting a thread sealant on the threads. Also here, and here, because these bolts go through the transmission where the oil sits. Also here, all these bolts, and the other side. Valve cover is on. Time to put some original Saab turbo oil in there. Clutch is in. I had to make this special tool out of a fence wire. The pressure plate needs to be compressed in order to install the slave cylinder, which is this. Then install compressed, then this needs to be operated, then the tool removed. Turbo is in. Yeah, it's gonna be boosting, all right. Also, transmission requires oil to be filled up through here, at least first liter. Otherwise the chain will run dry at idle. So 1 liter through here and 2 liters through right here. Of just regular conventional 1030 oil. Some people would say synthetics are better, or red MTL is better, but I always had good results with Castrol. Regular conventional oil keeps the engine clean, and the manual calls for 1030 oil to be used in the transmission, and that's what I'm going to be using. Engine and transmission are complete and are ready to go into chassis. This concludes episode 2. That's the fuel tank. I pulled the fuel pump out, and this car has been run for like 17 years. It was parked in year 2000, and the fuel tank's pretty clean. I guess all the fuel evaporated from it. Fuel pump looks good. I have to apply 12 volts to it and go test it out. Alright, so I installed manual transmission linkage. parts car all gutted, all the good parts out of it. Still have a nice headliner to remove. Cleaning up the engine bay. One of the major issues. Rotten wires. So I have to peel this up and then fix it. This. What a mess. That's the shifter. This is the linkage. Install the pedals, clutch pedal. But I found out that both the brake master cylinder is all rotten inside, all rusted up. So I gotta get that new. Actually, I'm gonna try to rebuild it. I found a bunch of rotten wires. But this is for the driver's door, so I'm gonna have to replace. I found one from 1989 model, so I'm gonna replace that now. Just splice them in. Replacing bushings, suspension bushings, ball joints. This one is totally gone. Bearing doesn't look that good either. That's my special front spring compressor. Brake master cylinder was all rotten inside. I had to get another one. Also another master cylinder for the clutch. What I have found out is that previous owner had the CV shafts replaced, and the shaft was not torqued down much, so this hub was spinning and it wore out right here. And I was looking to source one locally, and it was a mission impossible. Nobody has this early version parts, so I have to order one from eBay. That's going to delay me another 7 days. I got this Saab whole strip. Not much left on it. Got all the good parts. What's interesting, it's there's a Autobahn pass sticker from 1991. But it is a USA car, so it's kind of weird. Got this in the mail. Just what I needed. $30 shipped from Florida. I replaced the ball joint on here. Ball joints replaced. Wheel bearings replaced. I installed a skid plate from 87 and up model. New mounts. I packed it with the windshield sealant, so they're nice and solid. They'll last forever. Install this new from newer model. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ran the PEG oil with 134A Freon. Engine is in. Shop was kind of busy, so I didn't have time to grab the camera. I'm going to be installing the engine, so this will do. What I am doing right now is changing the sunroof from that donor car because it's better and works better. It's better condition. So the project is moving along. It's moving, definitely. Got the electronic sunroof off. Time to put another one in. And just replace the sunroof. Moment of truth. Saab is ready to start. I'm about to start this engine. Engine is pretty much finished. Got her on the lift. New CV boots, KYB shocks, bushings. Got the exhaust on. Skid plate. There's always leaks a little bit of grease right here, so I applied silicone. Right there. These two are special tools to keep the front suspension spring compressed in order to work on suspension. So this one is the original Saab one with number 8393209, and I lost one and actually made one at home. Interior is ready for carpet, for the padding. That is legendary Jetronic LH 2.2 Jetronic system. Engine management system. As you can see, this is a dry climate car. Floorboards are nice, no rust. We had a little bit here, just a little bit. I applied some roof sealant. Got the front piece carpet in, the insulation in. Made a cross right here, so when water gets trapped, it can evaporate. Also on the outside. Looking better already. Looks even better with the factory floor mats. Alright, I got the seats in. Running. I'll turn it off now. Alright, it's running perfectly. Engine is great. Transmission, I did a good job on the transmission. Shifts smoothly. I still have little things to finish, so this will be end of episode number 3. And in the next episode will be finishing touches. Bought a new exhaust muffler, and the pipe that goes in between, it says made in France. Made in France, but look at the crappy weld right here. I'm gonna have to fix that, otherwise it's not gonna seal. What a joke. I got his exhaust on. New Untitled muffler. New intermediate pipe. New gasket. This is always a critical part to clock this rear pipe correctly. Mine is sitting slightly at an angle. I had to cut right here and then reclock it, re-weld it. It's just the nature of the aftermarket pipes. New fuel filter is installed. Alright, so this is new. Muffler is new and it's leaking air right here. So I have to apply sealant. Also, the weld is so poor right here that it's leaking. A little bit of exhaust, barely noticeable, but it's leaking. It's time to replace the rack and pinion. It's probably the worst thing to replace on a classic Saab 900. I managed to find good rack and pinion in the junkyard. I pulled the boots to see if there's only any oil inside, and there's no oil inside, which means it's not leaking, and it was dry, so I'm gonna have to replace it, even though it's the early one, non-steel spool valve housing, but you gotta use what you can find. The rack is ready to go in. All I can say, it's extreme pain in the ass to install. Rack is in. Rebuilt rack and pinion is in there, and there are no leaks, as you can see. 2 days after, rack and pinion is in there. There are no leaks. Nice and dry. New boots, new hoses. I love it. I managed to find a better condition dashboard on one of the wrecking yards. That's my old one. It's all cracked. This one is slightly better. Also, it's a later model with a thicker pad. Also more support here. So I'm just going to go ahead and install it right now. baby! Went up to 13 psi on 87 octane, no problem. Update. I couldn't find the matching rims that go with the 85 turbo, so I had to get these from 84 turbo. They're the same thing, just different design. I got good tires on there, BF Goodrich. I installed these emblems on there. I'm just gonna keep the car the way it is. It looks more classic like this with the faded with the paint all faded. I got these strips that came off. I have them, so whenever I decide to paint the car, I'm gonna stick them on there. I got that dome light installed. That's from later models. Wired and installed. I still have to do this switch. Got the stereo installed. I removed the boost gauge because I don't need it. I'm just gonna keep the car stock with the 175 horsepower with the SPG tune in there, so it goes up to like a quarter red when it's cold, and when it's really hot it goes to like 3/4 into yellow. So that's the way it is. I don't want to be abusing this transmission. It's weak. They're made weak from the factory. For dome light, I had to install this little switch because on 85 it's switched up there, so, and then it'll go out automatically if I leave it on. I got the AC compressor installed. It's from that 88 and it works good. I charged the system already with 2 cans of 134A. I just used the gauge adapter on the gauges. Actually, I didn't even want to install the adapter on here. So I had this for a year, a little over a year, and then there's no leaks. I did a good job. Rack and pinion is not leaking. I did change the windshield from the cracked one. I had the cracked one, so I just installed the aftermarket one with new wiper blades. There's aluminum wishbone in here that always weakens up and this gets loose. So what I did, I just removed it, drilled 2 holes in here, through here, inside, and just put a zip tie just to tighten it up. Because when you're driving and that thing flaps around, you can't really see good. If you like these kind of cars and you would like to get one Saab 900 Turbo Classic, I would recommend 1989 Coupe manual. Reason is because in 1989 they fixed many of the issues, many of the design flaws, and why 89, why not 90 and 91? Because that's when they, in 1991, that's when they started putting the ABS and airbag on, and also automatic seat belts. Those things are junk and you want to avoid that.